going to Marriott, and just kidding. We like to have a lot of fun with these things. So we're gonna. There's enough, not crazy amount of people, so we'll allow questions throughout the presentation. If it gets a little crazy on time, I'll stop them, and we're going to be here afterwards to answer any questions anybody has. So in the beginning, we'll take some questions, and we'll see how the time's going. Okay. Like I said, I'm John Papa, president of DPS Advisors. With me tonight is Luke Papa. My son is third generation of DPS Advisors, and my brother-in-law Ted Fiore. He's an advisor with us. Just joined the firm about 6-8 months ago. 30 some odd years in experience in the financial services field. And what we do is we put on events like this throughout northern New Jersey, and we have a motto at DPS Advisors. I started this practice 38 years ago with my dad, and he's no longer with us, but we started this together with the premise of educate and empower people so they can make better decisions with their hard-earned money. If you were paying attention to the show, I talked a lot about stress-free environment, stress-free retirement. There's no stress. Like, you're not obligated to do anything. At the end of the night, we're going to offer everyone here who took the time out of their night to come on a rainy Thursday night, first rain. We can't complain. It's the first rain we've had in 2 months, so we can't complain about the weather. But you took time out of your day to come here to listen to us talk. We didn't offer you, sure, this isn't the first event you guys have been invited to, right? Probably the first one where we didn't offer you a steak dinner, a lunch. We don't do those events. I used to do them. I don't do them anymore, because I want the people who want to come and listen and learn about financial stuff. And we didn't even give you a bottle of water, right? So I'm glad you guys are here. I'd rather talk to a smaller group, ask questions, and answer stuff. And then we're going to offer everyone a consultation in our office in Roseland. It's an educational event. We'll give you a second opinion. We'll talk all about this throughout the presentation. So we're not going to sell you anything tonight. Like I said, it's stress-free, okay? So what you were watching a few seconds ago was a TV show that we do every Saturday morning on New Jersey 12 Network. If you have Optimum Cable or Verizon, you can see the show 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings. It's called The Papa Report. It's rebroadcast at 6:30 at night after the local news on News 12. Every other Saturday night, we're on Channel 11, CW 11. They run it at 6:30 every other Saturday night. We're pretty happy about that. It's pretty cool to be on a New York television station. Every Sunday at 2 o'clock, I do a radio show on WOR 710, same name, called The Papa Report, an hour show. It's not a live show. We record it on Mondays, and we broadcast it out on Sundays on 710. So there's a lot of places where you can hear us and see us, okay? Tonight we're going to talk about a few different topics that are really important to retirement. And we're going to hopefully answer all your questions that you have. And like I said, we'll be here afterwards to answer those questions, okay? So sit back. I'm not the best technology person, so we might have some hiccups. We have somebody in the back of the room, Chris, that'll help us if we have any issues. But I hooked it up myself, and it sounded pretty good. So I think we're gonna be okay. So with that, let's get going, right? The first thing I have to do, this is for legal reasons, for compliance. You probably can't read it all the way in the back there, maybe even up front, but it's got to be up here for like a minute or so. This keeps us in compliance. Nothing we say or do tonight, you should not act on anything that we say or do. We need to sit down and have an evaluation before you do anything. So do not, that's our compliance piece, so we're good to go. Why'd you accept the invitation, right? I talked to you about, I'm gonna bypass that.
I didn't come from a very wealthy.
A lot of people think that, financial advisors, they make tons of money, whatever. I grew up in a house in Roseland with 6 people in it in a 1-bathroom. My father, I didn't get asked to go first in the bathroom to get ready for school. I got told to go, you're going first, and that's what we're doing. My older brother, went to the same school I went to, and lunch was 50 cents, and my dad gave him a $1 bill, and I would meet him in the hallway to get the change so I can buy lunch. Now, you know how older brothers are sometimes. There was a lot of times I didn't get my 50 cents to buy lunch because my brother had 2 lunches. So I didn't come from a wealthy family. I'm a middle class, raised in Roseland, New Jersey. We're middle class people. I relate well with this group of people. I don't have any $50 million clients. I just don't relate well with them. I'm a middle class person, hardworking, and I want to make sure we're getting the bang for our buck for what we're doing in retirement. And that's really what this class is all about and what our practice is all about. I've been asked, I'm an independent licensed fiduciary. We're all licensed fiduciaries, which means we have your best interest over our own at all times throughout the planning process meeting, okay? Any decision that you make has to be in your best interest, and we'll spell that out. You know, our job on your team isn't to put you in something that you want to have, it's to put you in something that's going to be right for what you're trying to accomplish, okay? I use the analogy of Home Depot. You know, let's say you're hanging a picture on the wall in your house, and you work with a big box firm company, and that person sold you a 20-pound hammer to hang your picture. That's a suitable recommendation. You asked them for a hammer, they sold you a hammer, they'll never get in trouble for that. As a licensed fiduciary, if you filed a complaint, I'm probably getting fined for that. Okay, because I need to ask you some questions. I'm Home Depot. Hey, you need a hammer to hang that picture. Let's go to aisle 12. I have hammers that are 2-ounce hammers to sledgehammers. Hey, how's your health? Any health issues I need to know about? Any orthopedic issues I need to know about? We have to dig deep into your situation to figure out what's the right tool for the job that you're trying to accomplish, and what's the pros and cons of that tool. That's the fiduciary standard. Okay, a suitable broker sells you a 20-pound hammer, everything's fine. Licensed fiduciary does that, probably going to get in trouble. Okay? So you want to work with a licensed fiduciary. I've been on shows on Fox Business. Every Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, there's a show called The Wealth Council on Fox Business. They bring advisors in from across the country to talk about all the topics that we're going to hit tonight. And I was one of the advisors. I'm on 7 or 8 of the episodes. You're not on for the whole time. They cut you in and out of segments. So I've been on that show a bunch of times already. I've been on live on CNBC, MSNBC, WPIX. I wrote articles for Benzinga and Market Watch as a financial expert in the retirement field. So I have a lot of experience in this business. I know I look like I'm 25, but I'm 60, been in this business for 38. That was a joke. You guys are supposed to laugh at that. I'm 60, been in this business for 38 years. I have a lot of experience in this field here, okay? 38 years later, explained what a licensed fiduciary is, and you'll see I start talking, so I'm hitting slides that I did this already. So we go through this. Any questions about anything so far about what a licensed fiduciary is? Okay, the first topic we're going to hit tonight is Social Security, and I'm not going to be the one talking all night tonight. You guys don't want to hear from me the whole time, right? Ted is going to come up and talk a little bit about Social Security, when to turn it on. Is it going to be there? That's a big question we get all the time. I hear, oh, Social Security is going bankrupt. What does that actually mean? Ted will talk about that for a few seconds now, for a few minutes. Any questions you have, give us a shout. Raise your hand.
Thanks, John. Welcome, everyone. Happy to have you here. As John said, I have over 30 years experience in the financial services industry, but I am the new guy at the firm. So I was the one they asked me, I drew the short straw, I have to talk about Social Security. Now, that's not such a bad thing. I like talking about the topic, but there are over 2,700 rules when it comes to Social Security. And the Social Security Administration itself in 2018 conducted a study, and they determined that there are over 9,000 different ways that a married couple can claim Social Security. So I have to talk about 2,700 rules and 9,000 ways to claim and keep it to 15 minutes. So,
and maybe a little less.
So wish me luck. John, I'm on the clock.
Yeah, you are.
As John said, there's really, all of that said, there are 2 questions that people have when it comes to Social Security. Will it be there for me when I need it? And what is the best time for me to claim? So the first question, will it be there for me? The answer is yes, but And the second question is, when is the best time to claim? And the answer is, it depends. So, a lot of solid information right there. Yes, but, and it depends. So Social Security was enacted in 1935 by FDR, right? At that time, they literally just chose 60 years old as the full retirement age, 65 as the full retirement age. They said that 60 was too young, 70 was too old, so let's go with 65. But 90 years ago, when they chose 65 as the full retirement age when people could begin to collect, the average life expectancy was 59. So they weren't expecting many people to live long enough to collect Social Security when it was first enacted, right? 90 years later, they've only increased the full retirement age to either 66 years old or 67 years old, depending on which years you were born. However, life expectancy, some 90 years later, is now on average around 77 years old. So life expectancy has increased tremendously, and they've only increased the full retirement age 1 or 2 years, right? So what that means is, last year, there were 70 million people who collected Social Security. There are now more people taking money out of the system than are paying into the system. If you think about baby boomers, Generation X, now you talk about Generation Y and the millennials, they're going to be retiring in the next 10 to 15 years. So there's going to be even more people taking money out. And it's a pay-as-you-go system. So the money that I've been paying in for the last 35 years isn't reserved in the trust fund for me. As you're paying it in, the people who are collecting are taking that money out, right? So if you have more people taking it out and less money going into it, obviously there's going to be a time when the fund itself, the trust fund that has been going on for 90 years, is going to run out of money if they don't do something about it. The good news is people are always going to be paying into it. So if the government, if Congress doesn't do anything by, say, year 2035 or so, when they talk about it being bankrupt, there may not be money in the fund, but people will be paying in, and you would get about 80% of what you would have gotten unless Congress does something like continuing to raise the full retirement age. Or if you see on your paycheck, right, you'll see Social Security tax or FICA tax, and people are often like, who's the FICA guy that I'm paying 6.25% of my paycheck to? That's the Federal Insurance Contribution Act. That's the money that goes directly to Social Security, right? So they can potentially raise that. I don't know if they're going to do that. More likely scenarios that they're going to raise the retirement age or the maximum taxable amount. So will it be there? It will be there. It may be reduced. Congress probably will act within the next 10 to 15 years or so to make sure that everything is there for you. Politically, it doesn't make sense for either party to do away with Social Security. The job of every politician is to get reelected, to get their party reelected. So we don't see anytime soon when anybody on either side of the aisle is going to do away with Social Security. All right, so the second question is, when is the best time for me to collect, right? Hopefully you all know that you can begin to collect at age 62, right? And if you're 62 years old and you decide to claim Social Security and begin to collect, you'll see up here that you would get about 75% of what you would have gotten had you waited till your full retirement age of either 66 or 67, right? The maximum age, if you wait till age 70, however, you would get 132% of your full retirement age. And that's based on what's called your Social Security wage tax, right? So you'll see here, for the year 2022, the wage tax was $147,000. For next year, for 2025, it's gone up to about $176,000 and change. And what that means is, if you make $200,000 a year, if you make $500,000 a year, if you make $1 million a year, for Social Security purposes, you will not be taxed above that maximum or the Social Security wage tax. Again, it's 168 this year. It's going to be 176 next year. All right, and then there are things called COLA, right? And we're not talking about a cold, tasty beverage for this room. COLA is the cost of living adjustment. So each year, they will tack on to keep up with the cost of living. It's based on the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index. It's essentially keeping up with the cost of living or inflation, right? Since 75, it's been averaging about 3.69% a year. You get a bump. Last 20 years, from 2000 to 2020 or so, it was lower because interest rates were low, inflation was low, and it was about 2.15%. 2022, as everything began to come up, interest rates went up. You'll see it was 5.9. Last year in 2023, the cost of living adjustment was about 8%. It's back down this year to about 3.5. Next year, they've already said for 2025, it's going to be about 2.5. So it's really based on what's going on in the economy and your cost of living. So, we look kind of like a pretty homogeneous group, right? I was born in 1966. I'm 58 years old. John's older than me by a lot. John's 60 by a lot. And he'll always be older than me. Right, so you think when I was born, the average life expectancy back in 66 for people who were born there was about 73 years old. The fact that I'm still here today, and the good news is that everyone here, I'm going to generally outlive the average. Now I'm expected to live till I'm 84. All right, the fact that I'm still here today. I have two parents that are both alive at 84 years old. I had a grandfather that lived to 95. I meet my doctor regularly. It's kind of strange advice for financial advisors to tell you, talk to your doctor, right? Go to the doctor, talk about longevity. Because if you are in this room, chances are you're going to outlive the average from the year you were born. Financially, you need to plan for that, right? No one wants to be in a position where your quality of living financially is less than it is as you're working, right? In retirement, you don't want to run out of money, but you also want to kind of maintain the standard of living that you have now. So you think about, are you married, right? Do you have parents that you're taking care of? They talk about us as the sandwich generation. You might have adult kids who are living at home. You might have younger kids. You might have parents, right? Are you divorced? Are you married? Everyone's got a unique situation. How long are you continuing to work? Are both spouses working? Is the husband making more money than the wife? Is the wife making more? Who's the older spouse, right? So there are things that you have to take into account when you're planning for this. So what we wanted to try to do is, on this next slide, this is a sample or an example, purely mathematical, of existing clients. We named them Ron and Nancy here just to protect the innocent, right? But a standard scenario nowadays is that the husband can generally be a few years older. It's changing. Traditionally, husbands have made more money, but that's definitely changing. And we all know here, right, women have a longer life expectancy than men. So we're keeping that all into account here. Ron is 60, Nancy is 58. Ron, again, what I said earlier, now has a life expectancy of 85, and Nancy has a life expectancy of 90. So for the scenario here, Ron lives to 90, Ron lives to 85, Nancy lives to 90, and all three. This is Ron and Nancy if they decided to take Social Security both at the age of 62, and they both lived to 85 and 90. The cumulative value of their benefits would have been $1.659 million over the course of time from Social Security. Now, had Ron and Nancy both waited until their full retirement age of 67, the cumulative benefit would have been $1.944 million. So that's, over $200,000 more over the same life expectancy because they waited a few years longer.
Why is that number getting cut off?
Is it falling off?
Yeah, I don't know.
And then if Ron and Nancy both both waited until they were 70 rather than 62 or 67, it's tough to see here, but the cumulative benefit would have been $2.126 million, right? So, again, the same age, they lived to the same age of 85 and 90, but by waiting in this particular scenario, they were much better off financially. There comes a point in time at around age 78 or 79. If you start taking them at 62, you're obviously taking them earlier for a longer period of time. But because it's so much less on a monthly basis, when you get to be 78 or 79 years old, that's when waiting, you cross over the threshold, and in those next number of years, like for my parents who are both 84 and hopefully will be around for a long time, each month there's going to be a dramatic increase in the Social Security that they're taking in. All right, so again, I am trying to limit it. Are there any questions on what we just went over here? All right, this is obviously just part of your retirement plan. We're not talking about taxation, which John, I don't want to steal any of John's thunder. And then we're going to talk market volatility and market timing, which Luke is going to talk about. Any questions? Please let us know. Thanks.
I have a short question.
Sure.
Is this a new scenario, or did you make that a few months ago? Because there's lots of talk that's just brand new, right? About curtailing Social Security, doing away with it under our new government.
Like we said when Ted started the topic of Social Security, even if, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, they both talked about the other side going to do away with it, Social Security is bankrupt. Even if that term bankrupt doesn't mean you're going to get zero. That means if no changes are going to happen, like Ted was explaining, you'll get about 75 to 80% of your benefits. That's what bankrupt means, but the politicians don't say that because they don't want you to know that. They want you to think the other side is going to do away with Social Security. You're going to have no benefit whatsoever, so you're going to vote their side. And it goes back and forth between the two political parties. But mathematics rule politicians. If there are no changes made by Congress between now and 2035, we'll get 75 to 80% of the benefits that our statement says we're going to get.
Of what you just showed us.
Of what, yeah, but you get each person's statement is totally different. You'll get 75% of that to 80% of that benefit if no changes are made, which I find that hard to believe with being $36 trillion in debt. Changes are going to have to be made. And that's why leads us right into the next topic, okay? Who here has a 401k, 403b, 457, IRA, any tax-deferred money? You put money in, got a current tax deduction, and you're going to delay. You don't save taxes, you just push taxes to a later date. Everybody kind of raised their hand, right? Everybody in this room? Okay, good. That means this applies to all of you, okay? Who thinks tax rates are going to be lower 5-10 years from now or higher 5-10 years from now? Higher. Anybody here think they're going to be lower? Okay, that's great. If you have a tax-deferred bucket that you're going to push money out to a later date to pay taxes on, would you want to take that money out later when tax rates are higher or earlier when tax rates are lower?
It depends on what you can earn in between that time.
Yeah.
Market skyrockets, you wouldn't want to take it out now.
Well, I'm not saying take it out and spend it. What if we just move it to a different type of an account?
Right.
Yeah, we're going to continue investing. Yeah.
You have less to invest, 30% less.
How much?
30% if that's your tax bracket or something.
Okay. So you would rather just not take it out and then pay a 45% tax rate?
You have to weigh what you think this market's going to do.
No, it has nothing to do with the market. We're talking about tax rates. Tax rates.
Yeah, but if tax rates stay the same,
Well, I just asked, and we'll talk about this privately. I just asked, where do you think tax rates are going? Everybody in the room said higher.
yeah.
Every accountant I talk to says higher.
Yeah.
Every tax attorney I talk to says higher. So the question is, would you rather take out tax-deferred money when the tax rates are the lowest they're going to be in, or take them out when the highest they're going to be a lot higher? That's the question.
Yeah. Well,
So what's the answer?
well, no, if you can earn 10 times more, you...
But I'm not saying spend your money, sir. I'm saying move it to a different account that's still going to grow.
Yeah, but you'd have less to move to another account to grow.
That would never be taxed.
That will never be taxed again. So you can grow that bigger account and grow that big pot of money 20 years from now.
Starting off 30% lower to grow it.
Yeah, and what if your tax rate's 70% when you go out?
Maybe it's 35.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'd rather pay the least amount of taxes now and let it grow in a tax-free bucket. Mathematically, the 30% less tax account will grow more than it will when you turn it on later on. Every situation is different, but we're going to talk about taxes.
Show it on the tax calculator.
Go ahead.
I thought maybe what he was going to say was, if later on, if you're in a different tax bracket
Right.
because of your earned income,
Right.
then you could be, even though taxes might go up, you might go down in brackets and therefore...
You could go down in brackets, but the question is, the brackets might go from, the lowest bracket now is like 10%, that lowest bracket might be 20% 10 years from now. The lowest bracket, like if you're in a 28% tax bracket right now, that bracket could be 35%. Do you know when Ronald Reagan made his most money in a movie? He made $1 million. You know what the highest tax rate in the 1950s were? 90%. He paid 90% taxes on $1 million fee that he made in a movie. When I first got into this business in the late mid-80s, did anybody remember the excise tax you used to have to pay when you took money out of a qualified plan back then? What happens if they had an excise tax? Stroke of a pen, Congress, excise tax, guess what? Who are the 1%ers? The people with the 401k, IRAs. So if Congress, their main job is to get reelected, we don't want to raise taxes for the middle class. We're going to tax the 1%ers, the people with the 401ks, IRAs. Do you think a person would vote for that? Absolutely. So tax rates on 401ks are probably going to be a lot higher 10 years later on, 15 years later on. Don't listen to me. Talk to your accountant. Don't listen to him. Talk to your accountant and ask them, where do you think tax rates are going? And we're going to show you some numbers on if you don't do anything and just stay in that qualified plan and wait till 73, do the RMD. We'll show you what that looks like. It's so bad, we created a website about it, dpstaxbill.com. You can calculate what your taxes are going to be. Plug in some information, it'll show you a chart, and you'll see what your tax rates are going to be. It's horrible once you see it. U.S. national debt's almost $36 trillion now, and that slide was made, I think, 3 months ago. It's now at almost $36 trillion. Government doesn't make anything. They don't sell products. They collect tax revenue. How are they going to pay for that? How much money is sitting in qualified plans right now, in 401ks, IRAs? About $40 trillion. We're $36 trillion in debt. You don't think a politician is going to go campaign on, we'll just tax the rich. They got the 401ks, tax them. Who's not voting for that? The objective of this segment is to be, what are my options? Well, what can we do about this? How much taxes do I really have to pay? And we're going to show you that in a second. We think tax rates are going higher. I talked about it on my show. We'll skip this.
We did.
So let's go over these numbers. They're not going to be on the screen there. So let's say you have an IRA worth $500,000. And you're 65 years old, and you can earn 7% on your IRA. Is that a fair earning, sir? 7%?
Yep.
Pretty fair, right? If you have $500,000 in the IRA and it sits there for 8 more years, because you don't have to touch it till you're 73. And then in 2035, it's going to 75. So if you're, I think my age, if you're 60 years old, we don't have to touch it till we're 75. So if you play this game with the IRS and let it just sit and grow at 7% earnings, your $500,000 IRA is going to grow to $859,093.
How many years?
8 years, 73. 65 to 73. That's when the RMDs kick in. Your RMD is $34,781. Now, if you play this game and you live to 90 years old, we just talked about we're living longer, not younger, right? We're living longer. So if you live to 90 and you play the RMD game every year and you keep earning 7% and you keep taking your RMDs, the second year it's $37,000, then it's $39,000, then $42,000, then $45,000. Plus you're making Social Security. You might have other income from investments, rental properties. Does anybody think they're going to be in a lower tax bracket when they retire here in northern New Jersey? Because nobody who comes in my office is in a lower tax bracket. They're in the same, if not higher, in retirement. God forbid you have a pension. If you work for the government, police, fire, education, you have a pension, plus Social Security, plus RMDs, it's almost impossible to be in a lower tax bracket. We're going to be higher. So we're going to continue playing this game. So if you make it to 90, you would have distributed from this $500,000 IRA $1.1 million. That's taxable to you. That taxable, let's say your tax rate is 24%. We didn't change the tax rates. 24%. You're going to pay on the RMDs $264,000 in taxes on a $500,000 IRA when you were 65. But that's not the end of the story. There's still $1 million left in that IRA because you have great investments. $1 million left in the IRA that you have to distribute to your kids or grandkids, whoever. You're not here anymore, right? You and your spouse are gone. It goes to your kids. They get that money, and it's not the same rules like you guys have. It's called an inherited IRA. An inherited IRA, you used to be able to spread the tax out over their inherited beneficiary's lifetime. Secure Act 2.0 changed the rules. Now it's in 10 years. So let's say this $1 million goes to two kids, $500,000 apiece, probably in their prime working years, making their prime income. They now have to take out $50,000 a year from the inherited IRA that they got from you, added to their income. Is that going to put them in a lower tax bracket or a higher tax bracket? A higher tax bracket. Let's say, now this is 20 years down the road. I only put a 30% tax rate on it. It could be 50, could be 60, who knows, right? They're going to pay over $300,000 in taxes on the inherited IRA that you passed on. So that $500,000 IRA that you had at 65 years old and didn't do any tax planning and just said, I'm going to play the game of the RMD game, cost your family $573,000 in income taxes on an IRA worth $500,000 at 65 when you had options. You had options. So I'm going to give you your numbers now, okay, sir? Let's take the 30% off of it. What do I do? Well, we have 8 years to go on that $500,000 IRA. I'm going to pull out $78,000 a year. Because you know, a married couple filing a joint tax return can declare $390,000 of income and still be in a 24% tax bracket at today's tax rates. Single person, it's $169,000 or maybe $180,000, somewhere, I forget the exact, it's changing next year. So I think $169,000. In a single tax return, up to $169,000, still being a 24% tax bracket. So we work with clients and say, hey, let's take $78,000 out of that IRA every year for the next 8 years and spend it down and convert it to a Roth IRA. We're going to pay a little bit of tax, 30%. Preferably, we pay it with other tax dollars. Let's say you have money sitting in a CD, because a lot of older people have money sitting in a bank because they don't know what to do with, and they're not making a lot of money on the money in the bank. we would take the tax dollar out of there, and we still calculate it against what the costs are. But I take that $78,000 and convert it to a Roth IRA over that 8-year period, right? Now I invest that money and get the same 7% return. That IRA, Roth IRA, is now worth $950,000 at 73. But guess what? There's no required minimum distribution anymore. I don't have to take the money out if I don't want to. And if I do take the money out, it's completely tax-free.
Because you've already paid tax.
Because you paid, yeah, and you would have paid, so now, I forgot, thank you for saying that. By taking $78,000 a year out for 8 straight years at a 24% tax bracket, you would have paid $150,000 in taxes, $150,000.
Federal tax bracket.
Federal tax bracket. We're talking about federal taxes. Yeah, but people move, so we'll calculate the state taxes as well. And if you move to a state like Florida or a no-income tax state who don't tax IRA distributions, there's states that do that. Better for us, right? If you can do that. But if not, we'll calculate the state tax as well. So in that IRA that you and your family are going to pay taxes on over $1 million. Or $573,000, we can cut the tax bill to $150,000. One more problem with the IRA RMD distribution at 73 years old. Everybody, at that point, you're paying for Medicare, right? $174, your monthly premium for Medicare. Doesn't that change if your income's higher? So add $40,000 of RMDs to your income in retirement. Increases your Medicare premium too, right, sir?
Yep.
Got to pay more for Medicare. What's the highest number? $500 and something a month? At 73 years old in a Roth IRA, you could pull $50,000 out a year. It doesn't count at all. It's tax-free. So there's way more benefits taking retirement income from a tax-free account that you can't calculate manually comparing the difference between the taxes. But even still, I'd rather pay $150,000 than $573,000. Now my Roth IRA grew to $950,000. I don't have to take the money out if I don't want to. If I do, it's tax-free. If I'm going to take the same distributions out, I'll pull the same amount of money out that I was going to do with my RMD and pay no taxes, and I'm going to pass on $1 million to my kids who don't have a tax time bomb. Those same 2 kids will get $500,000 completely tax-free. They still have to distribute it over a 10-year period, but paying not a dime in taxes. Whose accountant in the room is telling you people to do, at least research a Roth conversion? Any accountants telling you to do that? Good. It's very few accountants are doing that because we brainwash the accountants into say, how do I pay less taxes in 2024? I don't want to pay more this year. Never looking at the big picture. I'd rather pay a little more now and pay nothing later. Now, for the young, I talked a little bit about it on the show, for younger people, we're telling them now, don't build a 401k or IRA. Build a Roth 401k, a Roth IRA. You don't get the current year tax deduction, but you get all growth and income completely tax-free. This kid's putting money into a Roth IRA and will never pay a dime in taxes 40 years from now. Tax rates could be whatever, 100% taxes, right? Pay no taxes whatsoever.
But do companies match Roth IRAs?
They do. Now you have to ask your company, do you match a Roth 401k contribution? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, we have a solution for that. I'm going to contribute to the 401k, the regular one, only up to the match. The rest of the contribution goes to the Roth. Because the match is like you're doubling your money and you pay the tax, it is what it is, but you're still making more money because you got a match. If you have a company that doesn't provide a match at all, I would go to Roth, see if they have a Roth version of it, and go Roth. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not doing tax planning on your IRAs and your 401ks, you're making a huge mistake, not only for you, but for your family. Because most people, I hear the story of, I want to die with no money. That's unrealistic. That's never going to happen, okay? You're going to be passing on assets. And do you want to pass on an asset that's going to cause a major tax problem for your kids? Or do you want to pass on an asset where they're going to be thankful, like, holy crap, I got all this money, I don't owe a dime to anybody? That's what you want to pass on. So we talk about taxes on qualified plans. You know, what are your options? You could sit here and do nothing, continue to defer to tax, play the RMD game. The IRS loves you. They want you to play that game because they're going to collect hundreds of thousands of dollars more in that game. Or you could pay taxes now at rates that we know, because we don't know what the tax rates are going to be 5 years from now. We just had an election, so we know that the current tax rates are going to stay in place for 4 years. Regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, we know they're going to stay in place for the next 4 years. Who knows after that what's going to happen? Who knows where our debt's going to be 4 years from now? Is it going to be $50 trillion? Then what do we do? Tax rates are going to have to go up. So we pay taxes at a known rate. The lowest it's going to be in our lifetimes is the rates we have right now. Your tax-efficient planning options are contribution to Roth, convert traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, or if you really don't need your IRA for income in retirement, and you're really just going to look to pass on those assets, life insurance could be an option as passing on a life, let your IRA pay for a life insurance policy to your kids as the beneficiaries, and you could pass on millions of dollars tax-free. So there's a lot of different options, but if you're not doing tax planning, you're missing the boat. So we built a website, I said it again, I said it before, I'll say it again, dpstaxbill.com. Calculate what your taxes are going to be. So everybody in this room, and there's no obligation, there's no information other than your name. I believe you put in there your name, your email address, because we have to email the results to it, your value. You plug in your interest rate you're going to earn, you plug in the tax rate, play around with it, and it'll email you your results. Everybody in this room raised their hand about having a 401k, IRA, or whatever. Everybody in this room in the next couple of days, if you have some time, should be going on that website. There's no obligation. There's no one knows anything. Find out what your numbers are. You'll be astonished as to what your numbers are. Any questions on this? Yes, sir.
So you just outlined a very detailed presentation on the Roth part. But why then are the 401ks so popular and so standardized as?
Great question. So I know he said I'm 60 and I'm old, but I didn't start working until I was in the early 80s, right? Back in the day, my grandparents, they worked for a company. First of all, they stayed there forever. Everybody had a pension. Companies were providing pensions. You worked at a company, you stayed there forever, and when you retired, not only did you get a gold watch, you got a monthly payment check for the rest of your life, right? Well, those plans started getting really expensive as the baby boomers started having more kids, and these corporations got together with Congress and said, wait a minute, we can't, it's not sustainable. It's sustainable in the 50s and the 60s, but we're seeing population increases, and we're hearing statistics actuarially that it's going to be nuts. So they talked to their politicians, and in 1978, Congress created the 401k. And took the onus or pressure off of retirement from the companies and passed it on to us as individuals. So now you have to become, before you had a pension, you didn't do anything but go to work. Go to work, worry about working, and work there for 40 years, and you're going to get a nice monthly check, and you're going to be set for life. That was the old days. Now in 78, the 401k comes in, you have to figure out, you have to become a financial advisor. I got to figure out how much can I afford to save. Right now I have to take money out of my paycheck to put it away. How much, where do I invest it, right? I don't know what investments to pick. I'm not a financial advisor. Listening to some guy or girl stand up in a room in the middle of a 401k meeting, I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm just going to aggressive, conservative, moderate. And it's all in funds. You can't pick individual stocks. It's all funds that have fees that no one knows about. That's what happened. And then as that became more prevalent, less and less people have pensions. Now, no company provides pensions anymore. You work for the government, you work for teachers, police, fire, and teachers, very few people, unions, very few people have a pension. And the difference between the planning that we do with people who come into our office who have a pension and the people who don't have a pension, it's a totally different conversation. Because without a pension, how am I going to create income? What's the number one thing when I retire? I want to have more money and more income than what my expenses are. Where's your income going to come from? Social Security is not enough. It was never meant to be your only source of income. So we have to figure out ways to create income with people without a pension. That's why the 401k is so much. And the IRS would push the 401k because they want to collect taxes. They want to collect the revenue. They know. Now they have a built-in system that's going to guarantee taxes to the IRS forever from RMD distributions. That's a moneymaker for the government. They didn't think that was in our best interest, right? It's in the government's best interest. That's why the companies wanted out of it. They wanted the pressure to be on the employee, not on them. They save a ton of money. Installing a 401k, I don't care if you're a 1,000 employee company. It's minuscule. It's not compared to having to save money for each individual person of those 1,000 employees. Make sense? Any questions, real quick? We are getting close to time, so. The other tax we're going to talk really quick about, I'll spend a couple seconds on it, is inflation, okay? Who here believes the 2.9% inflation rate that we just got told last week? It's ridiculous. We live here in North Jersey. I don't know. The expenses to me are double digits higher than they were a year ago. Gas is way higher. Utilities are way higher. Food's way higher. I'm saying double-digit inflation rates, right? I don't believe a 2.9%. So we just talked about living longer in retirement, right? So if you live 25 years in retirement, if inflation's running at 6%, which we think it's higher than that, your expenses are going to double every 8 years. At a 6% inflation rate. So if you have $4,000 a month in expenses, 8 years from now, that $4,000 is going to be $8,000. 8 years after that, that $8,000 is going to be $16,000. Now, if we're living 25 years in retirement, 65 to 90, that means your expenses are going to double 3 times in retirement. You better have an increasing income plan in place to combat inflation for the next 25 years. Because if you don't, you're going to run out of money. Who's talking to you about that? Is your current advisor? I'm sure everybody in here has a current advisor. Are they talking to you about tax planning strategies? Are they talking to you about what's your increasing income plan in retirement? Do you have one? If not, take us up on our offer at the end of the night when we tell you, come in, spend an hour in our office in Roseland, stress-free, and we'll just analyze your situation and go over it, right?
Coffee, bottle of water.
Coffee, coffee. Well, there's a cafeteria. There's a cafeteria in our building. We have lunch. You can have lunch if you want it. Anything you want. We're not giving you anything here tonight, though. That's a great point. That's funny. We like that. We like to have fun. You got to have fun with this stuff. It's not all dead serious, right? So Luke's going to come up and talk about, what's the other thing? How do we invest in retirement? How much risk am I taking? Volatility in retirement, right? Luke will talk about that for a little bit.
Thank you, Dad. I'm Luke Papa. Unlike my dad here, I actually am 25 years old. Graduated from the University of South Carolina about 2.5 years ago now. Thank you. And I've been working for DPS day one, out of the gate, out of college.
And he's licensed fiduciary, passed all his tests.
Yep. Got my licenses and ready to hit the ground running. So I'm going to be talking to you guys about market volatility and how that can affect you in retirement. Investing in retirement is totally different than investing while you're working. When you're working and you're receiving that income from work, you can afford to be aggressive with your investments, and you 100% should be. When you're getting closer to retirement and you're about 5 years out, that's when you want to start shifting to a more conservative portfolio. Once you're in retirement, you really need to worry about market volatility because you can't afford to take a loss in the market and having to take money out of your IRA, required minimum distribution, the RMD. Once you're 73 and RMDs are due and you haven't done any Roth conversions, that RMD doesn't care if the stock market is down and you still need to take that money out by December 31st. So let's look at an example of how a loss could potentially affect you. If you lose 10% in your portfolio, it's going to take you 3.6 years at a 3% return to get back to even. At a 6% return, it's going to take almost 2 years. In 2020, both stocks and bonds were down. Has everyone here heard of the 60-40 balanced portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds? Well, that portfolio was down 25% in 2020 because the concept of stocks and bonds having an inverse relationship is a lie. Bonds are affected by interest rates. And in 2020, the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates, bond values dropped, and that 60-40 balanced portfolio got destroyed, got hammered. So we take a look. If you lose 20% and you're now a conservative investor because you're in retirement, it's going to take you 7.5 years at a 3% return to get back to even. With the RMD on top of that, it's going to be impossible to accomplish. On the next slide, we got another chart I want to show you guys. If you start with $100,000, you lose 10%, it leaves you with $90,000, and you'd need an 11.1% return to get back to $100,000. You may think you lost 10%, all you're going to need is a 10% gain to get it back, get it all back. Fortunately, that's not how it works. If you lose 25%, that leaves you with 75 grand, and you need a 33.3% return to get back to 100,000, which means you'd have to be taking a crazy amount of risk to get that kind of return. And who wants to be taking that amount of risk when you're either in retirement or getting close? I don't think that would be comfortable for anyone. So you really need to keep your eye out for market volatility in retirement. I have one more chart I want to show you guys. This is showing a $1 million IRA from 2000 to 2009 with 4% distributions taken out and losses in the market. At the end of this period, in 2009, this person is left with $480,000. So what happens if you live 25 years in retirement? Because like my dad said before, and Ted said before, we're not living shorter nowadays, we're living longer. So your investment philosophy in retirement needs to be completely different than your investment philosophy while you were working.
That's exactly right. And why does it affect more people in this room? When you're building your portfolio and growing it, a 20% drop in the market, no big deal. Actually, that's a buying opportunity. You invest more money to get the rebound back, right? But people in retirement who are collecting RMDs out of their IRAs, let's give an example as to why it doesn't work being risky in retirement. So let's go back to, and I only use $1 million IRA because I was explaining to these ladies before the show started. It's easy for me math-wise in my head to divide numbers off of $1 million. It's easy. If you told me a weird number, it'll be hard for me to do that. I need a calculator. So $1 million IRA, let's say on December 31st, 2019, you had $1 million in your IRA, and the IRS calculates it, because it happens on December 31st. It's the value of the end of the year for your next year's distribution. And your first year's distribution is going to be about 4%. So in $1 million IRA on December 31st, 2019, you have to take 40 grand out of your IRA in 2020. Like Luke just said a few minutes ago, that diversified portfolio, 60-40 balanced portfolio, was down 25% that year because bonds were down because of rising interest rates. The market was down because of market volatility. So your $1 million IRA, and let's say this is year one of your retirement, $1 million IRA, you have to pull out 40 grand. And the market's down 25. So your portfolio is $1 million, now it's 750, and you have to withdraw 40. That it doesn't care what the value is of your IRA now. So now you're at 710, year one of retirement. That's 29% down year one because you have to take distributions. And that's the difference between when you're younger and growing your portfolio, a 20% drop in the market's a buying opportunity. When you're in retirement and collecting RMDs on an IRA, it's devastating to the IRA because you can't, there's not going to be, you're selling shares of stuff to raise that 40 grand for your distribution, and there's less shares to rebound when the market comes back. So when you're just sitting there watching your money and it's growing, it's fine to have downturns in the market. It's normal to have downturns in the market. But when you start the RMD game or you start taking distributions from your investments, whether they're IRA or not, you can't afford a 25% downturn in your portfolio. So you can't take that kind of risk that you're going to get a 7, 8, 10% return when you're in retirement, because you're going to be doing withdrawals out of it, not letting it grow. So there's a lot of things, that moving parts in the retirement plan. A stress-free retirement plan. That's what we talk a lot about at DPS Advisors. How can we build a stress-free retirement where I don't have to worry about market volatility, where I don't have to worry about an inflation issue? I have an increasing income plan in my plan. How do we do that? How do we pay less taxes to the IRS? The tax code book is 15, 20,000 pages long. It's not there to confuse us or hurt us. It's there so we can learn strategies to pay the least amount of taxes. If we're tax-paying citizens in the United States, doesn't mean we have to pay the most amount of taxes. It means we want to pay the least amount of taxes. And what strategies do we have in place to do that? That's what we do every day in our office, every day. So we're almost at an hour now, so I'm going to stay here for questions, open up for some questions, but we're going to offer everybody here in this room an opportunity. Actually, this is a slide I didn't go over. This is our 3 investment world discussion that everybody will go through. If you come into our office, we're going to talk about where are the different places you can put your money. Where can I get safe money growth? How do I reduce volatility in my portfolio? Having this conversation, and everyone will go through it, will show you how we do that and show you how to do it, where your investment options are, okay? That's what's called our 3 investment world discussion. I talk about it on my radio show, my TV show, and in these live events. And we'll do it with you in person as well. So what are your options, right? You can sit here, you can do nothing, listen to us, thank you for coming, or it was a rainy night, you got an hour in here. You'll hopefully learned a little bit. We're going to offer everybody here, our office is in Roseland, New Jersey, right off of Eisenhower Parkway. Right by where the 280, Eisenhower crosses over 280, you'll see our building. It says Brock Eichler on the top. We're on the first floor. We're 15 minutes from here. We're offering everybody an opportunity. Our calendar is outside. Come in, get a second opinion on what your plan is, and let's see if you're taking advantage of the right tax planning strategies. Are you taking advantage of when's the right time to turn on Social Security? Are you taking advantage of market volatility protection? Are you doing all those things in your plan? Because we just talked a lot about how bad things can be, right? But there's always a solution. We could always design something. We'll analyze what you currently have, right? And as a licensed fiduciary, what we have to tell you is if we do an analysis on your plan using Morningstar, Quanti, Riskalyze, 3 different independent sources analyze your assets. If there's stuff that's really good that you have, we're going to tell you to keep it. That's what a licensed fiduciary does. So you'll get a second opinion, whether you're working with an advisor or not. There's no obligation. It doesn't cost you a dime. It doesn't cost. We'll even give you a bottle of water, Diet Coke, coffee, sandwich, donuts. Come on in. You know, there's no stress, I promise you. No obligation, no stress. All we're asking you to do is just when you leave, sit down with Luke and Sue, and Ted will be outside. They can set your appointment tonight. We have our calendar for the next couple of weeks. I know it's Thanksgiving next week, so the calendar gets a little crazy, but we'll work towards your schedule. If you have to work later at night and meet after hours, we meet clients at 5, 6 o'clock if you're still working. I try not to work on a Saturday, but if you actually was your only option, Ted will meet you on a Saturday in our office. But somebody will meet with you. We'll work around your schedules. We like to have fun, right? So with that, I'm here to answer any questions. So is Ted, so is Luke. We'll answer any questions you have. But we're done. If you have any questions, ask us. Hopefully you'll take advantage of the free consultation, stress-free, I promise. You can come in and we can talk about taxes and returns. Yes, ma'am?